I'm going to get sober. And it was like, holy shit. Because of a show? Because something we said? Because something we talked about? What's going on, guys? Andrew with Pride. So, a lot of y'all might not know this. I've been sober my entire life, right? And through my entire life, whenever I've told people that, they go, "Oh my God, that's amazing. That's crazy. How do you do that? How is it that you've managed to stay sober your entire life?" I never really thought it was amazing. I still don't. Um, but it was just something that I've kind of jokingly referred to it as the least remarkable thing about me or the least interesting thing about me. And I am just consistently learning that maybe that's not the case. You know, it's obviously it's very uncommon. So the reason I'm bringing all this up is because I haven't really posted about it all that often. You know, it's like once a year I would post about um, you know, like, oh, here's kind of how I view my sobriety at this point. Here's my thoughts or my feelings about it, or whatever it may be. But it just kind of was. And the way that I've described it to a lot of people, whenever they congratulate me, is I'm like, look, this is you saying great job or oh my God, that's amazing, is like me saying, dude, that's so cool that you just took a breath. It's just a part of me at this point. Which honestly is kind of its own issue in a very strange little way that I'll get into. But this is the first year I've gotten a lot of questions about how to get sober. I cannot teach people how to get sober. Okay. I have never had to get sober. I can explain my story, and that's about it. Maybe some of that is going to resonate with someone, and I hope it does. So that being said, guys, I'm just going to get into this, and if this resonates with you guys, give me a 5 stars or whatever, or like this or subscribe or whatever, and share this to someone who maybe needs to hear this, because I realize that this is a really heavy topic for a lot of people. The way that you get sober is not going to be the same way it was for everybody. The reason I've been sober is not going to be the same for everybody else who is. The reason this is important to me is because this gene is in my family. It currently affects people in my family that I love, friends that I really love. I suppose I will start with the night that I decided to be sober. And a lot of people are going to look at this and go, oh my God, so you haven't always been sober. I don't care. Pretty much. I was 13 years old with 3 friends I can for sure say. There may have been more there. Chris, Kevin, and I believe Patrick was there. Or potentially Joel. Anyway. I'm only saying that because maybe they'll hear this. Kevin was actually one of the people who talked to me about it. He's like, how are you still sober? And I'm like, I don't know. But basically we go trick-or-treating and we go up to the rich neighborhood. There's no lights in this neighborhood. It's pretty freshly built. So obviously nobody's going up there to trick-or-treat, right? So we go to this one house where there's clearly a party going on inside, and they're like, we should go knock. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. And we get up to the front door, knock on this guy's door, and he opens the door, and I'm like, trick or treat. And he goes, oh shit, man, I don't have anything. And I was like, well, you gotta get us something, man. It's Halloween. And he goes, hold on. So comes back with a flask of peppermint schnapps and a case of Newcastle beer. So I go back to my friends. I am thrilled. I'm so excited. I take a couple swigs of the flask, drink a handful, 1 or 2 beers or something like that, finish off one of my friend's beers because they didn't like it. We get bored of the beer at some point. We're throwing them into the sky just to watch them explode. Um, I know one of them got drunk, or at least faked it really, really well. As kids do, they take one drink of a beer and they're like, "Oh my god, I'm so hammered." But anyway, I objectively drank the most, and I felt nothing. I felt nothing at all. And I don't know if I have like high tolerance or what the deal is, but yeah, I didn't feel anything from it. And the next morning I woke up and I was just kind of like, that wasn't as eventful as I thought it would be. And I'd had sips of wine when I was a kid, the way that they do in like other countries, at dinner, take a sip of your mom's wine or something like that, or at a wedding or whatever it may be. And I just always thought it tastes like shit. My sister was friends with a couple people that were straight edge. If people don't know what that's called, what that is, it's like a gang that, I'm using that word loosely, a gang. It's a group of people who were sober, and it started out fairly positive. It was kind of a movement through like punk. If you look up the band Minor Threat, they have a song called Straight Edge, and that's kind of where it all started out. It's basically just like, hey, I can go to shows and not have to get fucked up. I can, do all these things and still be sober. Is more or less the meaning behind it, right? And Rachel introduces me to some of these people indirectly. They come over to our house, and I was like, holy shit, these kids are cool. Like, just, I don't know, there was something different about them. And obviously a large part of it was these are the older kids, okay? But I think they're so cool. They kind of have this like way that they carry themselves, what a lot of the kids nowadays would call like Riz. And they were just different. I'd always watch these 90s and early 2000s movies where all the teenage kids are getting fucked up, and these kids weren't going. They were going to shows. So started listening to some hardcore music. That all kind of started, honestly, with like Hawthorne Heights and From First to Last. I still listen to both those bands all the time. And then, I start hearing more like hardcore stuff. I start learning about like the local music scene and stuff. So it basically became this community that I was around where everybody was kind of the same. We all had that same thing where we didn't want to drink, we didn't want to do drugs, we didn't want to smoke cigarettes, and I loved that. I don't know why, but I loved that. I thought it was so cool because whenever I would go outside of that circle, people would always tell me, like, oh, that like everybody tries to do that for a little bit, and then they always end up drinking or whatever it may be. And I actually have a distinct memory of this guy when I was camping with my family, and this guy goes, he's like, yeah, no, I tried being straight edge when I was a kid, but everybody breaks edge eventually. That's what it was called when you stop being straight edge, break edge, or you're a sellout. And I hated that. I hated that he thought he knew me. He thought he could say how I was going to be. He thought he could predict my life path, and it was kind of just like this unconscious little like, fuck you. You don't fucking know me. You don't know how I'm going to be just because this was again a teenage brain. It was like, just because you're a fucking pussy and you broke edge, like I was like, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna stick to this. So time goes by, a friend breaks edge, another friend breaks edge, another friend breaks edge, and got to the point where I had, God, in my early 20s, I had maybe 5, maybe 10 friends who were still straight edge. And the common thing between all of us was, it seemed, we all had some kind of addiction in our family history. We all had this idea that we wanted to prove people wrong, which, funny enough, also is kind of what kept me going in the gym. I remember this kid named Mitch told me I wasn't going to last in the gym. I have thoughts about that, but anyway. the circle that I was around was probably the biggest reason, at least early on. Because when do you get tempted with that the most? It's like when you're in high school, you go to high school parties, people passing around drinks or passing a joint or whatever it may be. That's when you're going to get the most temptation. And I had this group that nobody wanted to. No one wanted to fucking do that. Which I will say is kind of similar with fat loss. Like your community is very important. The people that are around you. But that was really the biggest thing for me in the beginning, was that my community, we were all like-minded in that. Nobody wanted to do these things. Look at a lot of my friends now. Most of us go to the gym. Most of us are self-employed. Your circle of influence, as it's referred to, is huge. If you're around a lot of people who are drinking, doing various kinds of drugs and whatever, what are the odds that you end up doing it too? Statistically, the odds are extremely high. What about outside of that? You're not in high school or your early 20s forever. Another part of it was that I had a goal that felt bigger than me. I remember when I was playing music, I was in a metal hardcore band throughout high school and a little bit in my early 20s. I'll link it. I know there's a Bandcamp. There's a Bandcamp logo somewhere that I can link for that, but I don't know. Maybe I'll put it on Spotify if I remember to. But anyway, we were, people knew us as like this straight edge band, this drug-free, sober band, whatever. And people would always come up to me and our bass player Sam, and even our vocalist Tylee, actually. No, they came up to all of us actually on separate occasions, separate shows, and they would just talk to us. And sometimes it was, hey, I'm gonna get sober, and it was like, holy shit, because of a show, because something we said, because something we talked about, because we always talked about that, like how, not like a preachy way, but it was just like, hey, if you're struggling with addiction, come talk to us. And people would. And man, that was something that's fucking bigger than me. That was so crazy to experience, to have someone be like, hey, I'm going to change my life because of you. And it shouldn't take someone else to whatever, but it's like, if that ends up being the thing, then like, who cares? Who cares where salvation comes from, so to speak. So not only was it my focus, it was also my escape. You have to have a goal or a focus that is bigger than you, and maybe I would like to think every single goal can come from within us, but that's just not entirely the case. There are things that are going to extrinsically motivate us. And, maybe for you, that is, you have someone you care about who, you want to see get sober. And maybe that's why you get sober, is to try and inspire them to do the same. I don't know. But you've got to find something bigger than you that's going to take you beyond that. And, a lot of that was I wanted to be different. I wanted to be the person who could do that. I wanted to be the person who everyone says, oh, you'll sell out eventually. And I was like, I don't think I'm going to. I also wanted to get married and have kids and stuff. That was a big thing. And I don't know. For some reason, I felt like alcohol and drugs would impede that in some way. Not sure why, but yeah. I was talking to a friend that I have in Germany, and she made me have a realization. Because she said, I just don't want to need the social lubricant anymore. I don't want to have to drink a couple beers or whatever, or smoke weed to be able to hang out with my friends. I just want to be able to do it and it not be a big deal. And that was something that I hadn't ever considered, was that the reason I've been able to be this social person, talking to everybody, making friends with everybody, is because I had to develop that skill. I didn't have that social lubricant. So I had to be able to engage with people. I had to be able to ask questions to get them to engage with me, or whatever it may be. Whatever the reason is that people talk to me and people are my friend. I have no fucking idea. But I had to do something, because I couldn't just stumble drunkenly into a conversation and have this people call it liquid courage. It's actually just decreased inhibitions. You're more comfortable being a dumbass. I didn't have that. So I had to find a way to do that. So, I mean, that's probably something that a lot of people deal with is that because that's their social lubricant, they go, oh my God, what if I'm not going to be like myself anymore? What if I'm not going to be, X, Y, and Z sort of way? And I remember when I was prescribed Adderall for ADHD as a kid. I hated it. I actually had the exact opposite thing where I was like, oh my God, I'm taking this and I don't feel like myself. And, got off of it pretty much as quickly as I could. But you've got to realize that you're not going to have that crutch. So you're going to have to develop skills. You got to get comfortable in the fact that it's going to be really, really weird for a little while. You're going to feel like an alien trying to interact with people. And you're also, unfortunately, going to see how you probably looked all those times that you were, drunk or fucked up or whatever it may be. Because you're going to be the sober one seeing all these other people at parties and get-togethers who are fucking plastered. And I mean, that's been my entire life. I don't think anything of it. People will come up to me and be like, oh my God, it's so embarrassing. I never get this drunk. I'm like, I literally do not care. But that's, yeah, I mean, to go back to the, people getting sober because that has been another interesting thing is a lot of people coming up to me when they're trashed and getting my number and be like, can I talk to you about this? Can I talk to you about getting sober? And I'm like, fuck, yeah, but I'm just some guy. I don't know what the reason always is that people decide to start using or drinking. But I know a lot of people will say, oh, I just didn't like myself. And maybe that's another big barrier to sobriety is that people just don't like themselves. And I've had periods like that for sure. I've had periods where I was like, God, I can't fucking stand it. This is usually after I like really fuck something up or make a huge mistake because it feels out of alignment with who I think of myself as. It's like, oh my God, I hate myself. I hate who I am in this exact moment because I did something I don't like. Right. There's this TV show. Oh my God, there's this TV show. Okay, cool. You guys can look up some clips from this. It was called The Pickup Artist. It was on MTV. And I remember, God, this guy was such a goon. I can't remember his name, but yeah, it was so cheesy. It was so corny. And I tried watching it because I had no game when I was a kid. And, maybe I still don't. I have no idea. I probably don't. But I had none at all, right? The only thing I had going for me was that I was tall and, pretty cute kid. And I played in a band, right? But I remember the host, he had this huge thing that he would teach all of his students, right? Fake it till you make it. So what if you don't like yourself? I mean, obviously you can make changes, but there's also the option of fake it till you make it. Maybe this is bad advice, which is why I don't want to think of me as teaching anybody how to do this. This is just something that was good for me. I felt like I was goofy around people, and then I was like, no, I'm not. I'm really good around people. People love talking to me. And then boom, suddenly that was the truth because I kind of stepped into that role as someone who was fun to talk to, someone who's good at talking to people, whatever it may be. I literally pretended to be good at talking to people, and it worked. So I didn't need that social lubricant, right? And I don't know, maybe this is kind of a little tangent, but isn't journaling kind of like a version of fake it till you make it? If you're writing things down that you want to be, you're almost thinking yourself. You're trying to manifest those things into yourself, right? So is it really that crazy to say, hey, if you're bad at talking to people right now when you're sober, just pretend that you're good at it? Why wouldn't that work? That is probably not the craziest thing I'm going to say like on this podcast, let alone this episode. I don't know. I honestly think it's a better idea than I did when I very first said it. I kind of referenced this in the beginning, but I had an identity around being sober, around being straight edge, which some people might be cringing that I still call myself straight edge, but it is what it is. I had an identity around it, So doing something that was outside of that, I mean, it felt felt like this misalignment with who I was or who I believed that I was. So it's no different than right now. I identify as this guy who identify, that means something different in today's political culture. I identify as this person who like goes to the gym and meal preps and eats well and takes care of my body and all these different things. So it doesn't feel hard to do. It feels hard to not do it. It feels fucking weird to not do it. I'm really, really sore today from the gym the last couple days. I'm not going today because my body is beat to hell. So I'm just going to be doing some stretching and foam rolling, right? But that's how easy going to the gym is for me because it's become a part of my identity. Now, where that actually ended up getting in the way, and I do want to just say this, is that you probably need to develop an identity as someone who's not an addict or someone who is sober. And one of the things that I've seen in like 12 steps, because I've been to several like, sobriety meetings, both NA and AA with a loved one. And they always like, you stand up and it's like, hey, my name's so-and-so and I'm an addict. And it's like, what the fuck, dude? You're going to identify as an addict for the rest of your life? That shit seems terrible. I can't make sense of that. I don't know if anybody else can make sense of it to me, but yeah, I can't. That seems crazy to me. But actually, this is a perfect example of how identity can actually get you into trouble. Is I identified so strongly with it that when my mental health was probably at its worst, I was seeing therapists and stuff like that, and it was, I guess, sort of kind of helping. But with what I was going through, I had been looking into psychedelic therapy since freshman year. I actually remember the first report that I did on it, and I was like, this is crazy. So when it actually came time to really step into that and really manage my mental health, I found someone who did psychedelic therapy, and I was so resistant to it. I was scared to do it, not because I didn't think it would work, not because of anything like that, or not because I thought it was going to hurt me, but because I was like, oh my God, what if this changes me? Or, oh my God, I'm not going to be sober anymore, which is stupid. Because I freaking got my wisdom teeth taken out and I was taking whatever oxy something or other for that. And I didn't have any issue with that because I'm like, oh, my mouth is in pain. I need to take this medication. But I had all these mental blocks because of this identity as identifying as someone who's completely sober, that when my brain hurts or my brain is broken, I was like, oh my God, I can't do this thing that's going to fix it though. Right? I was worried that was going to break the seal, so to speak. Like that was going to be once I do this, once I do psychedelic therapy, it's all going to go downhill. I'm going to become this raging drug addict. I'm going to have this huge problem. I'm going to become X, Y, Z. Oh my God, you guys, I was so scared. I was so scared that was going to happen. And I even felt guilty about the joy and pleasure around it. Because, like people who've done it, they know what I'm talking about. Like it feels good to do those kinds of things. And I was so scared that I was just going to want that forever. And this is a bit of a tangent, but I remember him saying, because I talked to the guy who was guiding me through it, and I said, I wish this didn't feel good. And he said, why not? I said, because healing needs to hurt. He said, why? I don't know where I thought where that thought came from, that healing needs to be painful. But you also see that in a lot of addicts where they're just kind of self-flagellating themselves. They're just constantly beating the shit out of themselves. Oh my God, I'm an addict. I'm a terrible person. I'm a this, I'm a that. And it's like, fuck, dude. It doesn't need to be misery to get better. So a lot of people might hear this and they might go, well, it's easy for you to stay sober because you never have. I have experienced what it's like to not be sober. I've taken too many oxys when I got my wisdom teeth taken out, or painkillers, or from whatever reason. I've had those things happen. I've done psychedelic therapy. I've felt what it is like. And I have had those moments since where I go, I'll be like at a at a rave or something like that, completely sober, taking care of my friends, and I'll have this thought where I go, this would probably be fun if I took X substance, whatever it may be. And then I go, yeah, but I'm having a lot of fun right now. And then it just kind of goes away because I still identify as this sober person. Doing psychedelic therapy didn't change this way that I see myself. I don't see myself as like, someone who uses drugs, because I'm not using psychedelic therapy or the drugs from psychedelic therapy any more than than I would use an Advil, and nobody would like bat an eye about that, me saying I'm sober. So, there's just, I guess, this part of me that recognizes there is that addict brain in me where I have those moments where I go, you should do it. It would be fun. It would be fun for New Year's. God, I mean, oh my God, you guys, for New Year's, you have no idea how many times that thought came to my mind the week leading up to New Year's, where I was like, that would be fun. That would be fun. That would be fun. And then I get to New Year's and I'm like, yeah, but I'm having a great time and I'm taking care of my friends. One of my friends was, I was trip sitting for him. I've always thought of myself as a fairly pragmatic person. I hope I'm using that word right. I probably am. What would I gain from not being sober? I don't know. I know what I gained from psychedelic therapy, but what would I gain from drinking that I can't already do right now? What would I gain from doing certain kinds of drugs that I don't already have within me? Fucking nothing. But what? So it's kind of one of those things where, okay, what is the potential upside? I don't know. Maybe a little bit of social lubricant. Maybe I feel a little happier. Got a little bit of juju about me, right? And then there's the potential downside. I potentially become a drug addict. I potentially fuck something up really bad, ruin a friendship, ruin a relationship, ruin an aspect of my life because I accidentally do something illegal in a stupid moment of inebriation, right? What is the thing that you're gaining from not being sober? If you're listening to this, what is it that, and again, I'm not saying you need to get sober if you're listening to this. If this doesn't apply to you, don't listen to this shit. But if you're listening to this wanting to be sober, what are you getting from drinking or using things? What is it? How is that something that you're not able to get within you? You can develop skills of conversation. You can develop confidence in talking to people. Look at how many people became sober and they are better for it. They're better because of getting sober. I remember when I was in this multi-level marketing company called Amway. I'm not even going to talk about them all that much, but a big thing that they had us do was we were constantly pumping our head full of, the message and the dream and the this and the that. So every day, it was, or every week, it was like, okay, listen to this, audio, which was essentially a podcast from one of the people in the Amway cult, where they would be like, look at our life, look how amazing it is, you can have it too. So you listen to that, get your daily brainwash. And then they'd have these little messages kind of come through, little voice audios. And, you're hearing these little more blurb style brainwashes, right? Having that consistent content coming in, that does a lot. Really keeps you wrapped up, really keeps you plugged in, so to speak, right? Same with churches. Once a week, You go meet up with your church gang on Sunday, sometimes Wednesdays, if you have like the little midweek booster or whatever. Having content that's based around your sobriety, listening to stuff is really, really useful. I listen to a ton of fitness content. Shocker. I'm into fitness. I look at a lot of like cooking stuff. Shocker. I like cooking food. My friend who plays video games, guess what he watches a lot of? Oh, you guessed it. Type in an interviewer or celebrity that you really like, and just type in sober. There are always stories. No, you know what? Okay, a lot of people are going to hate that I say this, but type in Joe Rogan sober. He's interviewed so many celebrities that have gotten sober. I mean, I would be shocked if you couldn't find 50 different podcast guests where they talk about getting sober in detail, in like to great lengths. I know there's one with Robert Downey Jr. that was really good. I really liked that episode. That was great. But when you're listening to the stories, don't look at them trying to find out like, oh, well, look at how much different I am. Their situation is nothing like me. That doesn't fucking matter. Look at what is similar. Because you're probably going to be a lot more similar to those kinds of stories than you are going to be different. When I went through a breakup, I had a friend who went through a breakup at the exact same time, and I remember I was super upset about it. And he was so nonchalant about it. He like was not affected by this breakup, and it was like nearly a decade that they had been together, and he was just not affected by it to any degree. I think we talked about it 3 or 4 times, and he was good. He was fine, right? And he goes, "Do you ever wonder if the reason you're sad about it is because pop culture tells us you should be sad after a breakup?" And I was like, what the fuck? No. But now I'm like, what? Dude, maybe. Do you ever wonder if getting sober or getting clean is hard because they tell us it is? And maybe that's a hot take. That's probably a really fucking hot take. But like, think about how much, this might not be an original thought, by the way. I may have heard this somewhere. Think about how much drug and alcohol and cigarette industries have to gain from telling people this is hard to quit, because they know someone's going to try it eventually. They know that someone's going to try it eventually. They don't have to talk people into trying that kind of shit. Really, it's so pervasive in our society. But saying this is hard to quit does not stop people from trying something, right? There was a guy on Reddit where everybody was talking about how hard heroin is, or how hard it is to quit. And this guy ended up, this is such a depressing thing. If you type in Reddit heroin, and you'll probably find this on Google. I'll try to link it if I remember. But this guy was like, how hard could it be? So he was like, I've never done any drugs. I barely ever drink. I decided to try heroin. And then you see this process of his addiction where he just gets deeper and deeper and deeper. People know heroin is hard to quit, and it didn't stop him. So what do the, like alcohol, tobacco, and drug worlds have to gain from telling us that it's hard to quit? It's that we convince ourselves this shit is hard to quit. Fucking hell, man. When I had that little part of me where I was like, oh my God, what if I start using? What if I become XYZ and start doing all these drugs and blah, 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 blah? It was not 24 hours later where I was like, yeah, but that's not going to happen. Again, maybe it's fake until you make it. Maybe it's genuine belief that I didn't think that I was going to step into that shit. But yeah. A lot of the stuff around this is just going to be just handled today. If you decide that you want to get sober, it can't be, okay, I'm going to be sober for the rest of my life, because then you are making a promise that future you has to keep. Right? Just handle today. Just take one day off. It's January right now, guys. It's dry January. Maybe you're listening to this in October and it's sober October, whatever. Just take it one day. And that's it. And when you decide to drink, just tell yourself, you know what? You can have a drink, but maybe we'll just drink tomorrow instead. Maybe I'll just do drugs tomorrow. And then you'll get to tomorrow and then just say, you know what? Oh, one of my cameras just stopped. I have no idea why. Anyway, just tell yourself, I'll just get to tomorrow. And then the next day, you know what? I'll do it tomorrow. The next day, I'll just do it tomorrow. Ultimately, guys, here's the thing. How do you get sober? You just got to fucking do it. The obstacle is the way. It's a really, really great quote from Marcus Aurelius. And you just have to do it. How do you get better at squatting? By squatting. How do you get sober? By deciding to be sober and sticking to it. And people are going to hear that and say, real fucking easy for you to say. Well, I have drank. I have done psychedelics, therapy, whatever. I've experienced those things. But I have decided this is who I am. Make that decision that you are going to be someone different. Take it day by day and just move into that. Find something bigger than you so that the focus stops being, I need to be sober, and the focus starts being, I have a goal that is so much fucking bigger than me that if I don't get sober, I will never realize it. I don't believe in reincarnation. I don't believe in an afterlife, and that breaks my fucking heart. But that means that all I have is while I'm here. And I want my life to fucking matter. And I hope you guys too. Or that you do too. And if that isn't a big enough thing for you, then just keep on searching. There's something out there that matters enough. So, until next time, guys, my name's Andrew with Pride. See y'all later.
Hey guys, if you got some value out of that question, please share it to someone else who needs to hear it. And I'm talking to you right now. If you want to ask your own question, you can go direct message me on Instagram at AndrewPFM. You can go toss a comment on YouTube, on TikTok at AndrewPFM as well, or my business Instagram at Pride Fitness and Movement. Yeah, hope to see you guys there. Later.